Imagine becoming the showrunner for the 2024 season of Doctor Who. Your mission has to be to revive the TV audience ratings, rectify certain problematic canon and issues, make Doctor Who must-watch TV again, make the Doctor an identifiable alien hero, and get the adventures up and running again. Which villains would you bring back to help revive the ratings? Which villains deserve another appearance? Which villains had that menace, that edge, that zeal to challenge our hero and make for good dramatic tense television? The Master was the usual choice, but he's been severely compromised, reduced to a zany, screaming madman. So if not the Master, who should come back? Join us.
Taran Capel. Now, Brendan, this was one of yours, wasn't it?
It was, and I know it's out there because I made my list of villains and I put next to each one, no. For example, the Master, no. And then I thought, right, okay, I know what you're after, but because when we're trying to save Doctor Who, we need something that's really authentic, that hasn't been overused, that the audience aren't sick to death of, but you can do a lot with it as a decent writer. And Taran Capel, I know he's dead, but that doesn't stop us in Doctor Who, does it? So Taran Capel, with using all that Isaac Asimov, robot element, the AI element nowadays, I thought it would be very current. I thought you could go further back in time when he was still dabbling on other planets, trying to cause, bringing down, human civilization. And it could be a thread in Doctor Who, this master plan of his, because his AI, his robotization of different cultures could be everywhere in the universe. I just thought you could really set a whole template with him at the center of the web. And it would be so current.
Yeah, I think it would, particularly with today's day and age and relying on robots and AI.
Imagine what they would look like updated too. Like if you took these same characters and the robots, because they looked really cool to me, and it was 50 years old.
Yeah.
But imagine they'd probably take it over the top. But I'd like kind of like just a slight, almost like retro, cheap looking update would be cool. I'd like to see those again in Doctor Who myself.
So, like, maybe even like looking like this, just like an updated version.
Yeah, just like a little bit better makeup effects. We're probably not going to see where it's faded, and you can see his skin or something. But also those robots. I just think those robots are it's like one of the most aesthetically cool looking things in Doctor Who. For some reason, they just look really cool to me.
Yeah, and his motivation was it was a very stark, clear motivation. And he was, by the end, he was crazed because he was switching to robotization. So take it further back. I mean, they've done it with blooming Davros Gate. Take it back, and have him where, actually, believe it or not, his fingers were in lots of pies on different planets, and he's spreading this plague of stuff. And it would take a whole season for the Doctor to deal with. And I think you need to bring it back to brass tacks. It's an adventure. Each planet, there's a slightly different issue. Oh, I don't know. And just had to have him as the big reveal. It would feed the fans, because only us would know him. Everybody else when you asked me this question about saving Doctor Who, I did think about whether I go populist. A lot of people who don't watch Doctor Who have maybe heard of the Master, but I just thought, no, I know, but we've got so many problems with that. What we need is Doctor Who is really authentic, it's gripping, and it's contemporary, and he fits that, I think.
Do you think this could be, because this was Tom Baker, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Tom Baker. I'm just reading down there. So Russell T Davies, he hinted that a Tom Baker era character was going to be coming back. Is it possible that it could be Taran Capel?
I don't think it will be. I don't think RTD
Go
will,
ahead and say it, Brandon. Why don't you go ahead and say it, Brandon? You know you're itching. He's just sitting. Oh, you can say Sutek.
I'm trying not to mention that maybe somewhere else I've mentioned it only once or twice, maybe.
He got me thinking that stuff now. I mean,
no, I've even related my Maestro theory to your Sutek theory. So,
so we'll all be wrong, but
we'll all be wrong together.
So. No, I actually think this would be Sutek would have been obviously a very, very good choice, and that's where I thought it was leading. But the Taran Capel, I thought, would be actually more contemporary. I was working on with the Sutek thing where I think RTD is going with fantasy and gods. That's not my thing. This is more authentic. I'd like this sort of criminal. He's criminal.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe they need to get away from the cosmic for a little while, like what you're saying. Like, think about from my POV, excuse me, as somebody who watched New Who first and then went and watched Classic, I had to adjust for a minute because comparatively, Classic Who can almost feel claustrophobic, but it's just that much smaller and more intimate because of what they're working with. And actually, from the direction Brendan's talking about, it would be more of a back to basics of what really kind of made the show special anyway. So they could take I keep saying, do like the retro, make it look like it's still cheap, but you still got the money. So I'd like to see them do something smaller, but just use the money they have to accentuate it.
Yeah.
And Capel, sorry, if I just before my brain goes dead, Taran Capel in a way is like the Kaiser Soze of Usual Suspects. Because we didn't know who he was on that space liner or whatever you called it, that sand miner thing. But I just think he could be something sinister in the background and he never quite gets caught. And I just think that brings a lot of excitement. I don't want the pantomime villain in Doctor Who at the moment. I want this kind of somebody's got their fingers in this and you don't quite know who. You suspect it might be Taran Capel.
And not silly, maybe even stoic, but very serious and maybe calm, cool, and collected to the point of being scary instead of being like overly over the top bombastic or something,
But if it was like a Kaiser Soze reveal at the end of season 1, whoa, that would be fantastic.
It would be.
Like, who's been behind all this? And then Chris Chibnall steps out from behind something, just laughing. Like, it was me all along.
Imagine if it was Chris Chibnall as Taran Capel. That was me. Yeah, this is also the type of character that John Pertwee used to actually prefer because it had the always had the actor behind the mask, so to speak. Okay, so our next one, that was a good choice. Thank you very much, Brendan. Who is it? Oh, it's Rassilon.
Dang right.
Okay. Why did you choose Rassilon, Brandon?
For more, I mean, I don't know if it would save anything, but for personal, like selfish reasons. So if you've read, obviously, if you've watched the show, the classic show and the new show, you've seen Rassilon. If you've read any of the books, some of the lore, some of the extra things they've released, but there's some confusing things about Rassilon. Like, he's supposed to be the founder of Time Lord Society. Up until more recently, like New Who, I always saw him more as like a benevolent kind of watcher. Like, after he died a natural death, they upload him in the Matrix. In the magazine comics always kind of made out like the Matrix lords were kind of watching over things, and maybe they were the ones nudging the TARDIS to this place or that. And I'd like to see more of that. And if he ends up being the villain, fine. But like, I want more explained. Him and or I know y'all don't say it like I do. I say Omega. I think y'all say it Omega or something like that. Omega, but I say Omega. But I'd like to see Rassilon and Omega, like, both. I would like to see them as like two different points of like the main villains for a season, but like counterpoint between the two of them where you can't ever really figure out who's the real villain until that gets all revealed, Yeah. But I want more of that history. I just think that's I think there's a lot there. And I know sometimes we kill things by revealing all the secret sauce, but I would very much like to know more. I'm enamored of the Time Lords and the lore and all that, and I would very much like to know more about what that history was with Rassilon, Omega, and all that.
Yeah, and he's not used that often at all, is he?
You would
Throughout
think
the
the
entire series.
level of impact, you would think he'd been in a lot of episodes or something, but not really. I
Yeah.
mean, I think we've seen him more. We've seen him more in New Who than old, as far as I know.
I think we hear about him more.
Right.
I think so.
And I guess you
As
really
in
only see him in the Five Doctors. You kind of see him, but
Yeah.
you never really knew he was kind of like ambiguous. You didn't really know whether he's hero or villain. But I've been poisoned because I know a lot of people don't like the Cartmel master plan and all that stuff. I've been a little bit overly poisoned by all that. So like I kind of like that. I like certain elements of that version of it where the Doctor's like reincarnated and he was one of the ones that helped found Time Lord Society. So I've always wanted to know more about the Time Lords.
Awesome. All right, let's see who's next, shall we? Thank you for that choice. I like that choice. Magnus Greel. Go on then, Brendan.
the Butcher of Brisbane. I mean, he's that title in itself. I just loved, and then I went and lived in Brisbane for years. I loved it. But I think, and again, I know he's dead, but the point is, he obviously is a galactic villain from the future. And so there's a lot of scope for the Doctor come across him in various guises before this ultimate death. And I like the idea that there's wars going on the planet Earth. He's a master villain. He's engineers stuff. He's a class scientist and all the rest of it. It's a bit like everybody's going on about, I want the Rani back. I want the Rani back. And we know the Rani's a good chemist and all the rest of it. Magnus Greel was dabbling with all this stuff too. And, his fingers are in the pie. I know Peking, Beijing, he was involved over there. And, he obviously massacred a lot of people in Brisbane. And so he basically was quite global in the future. And I just love this idea that, again, you've got, again, you could do a season, because I'm really taking it seriously when you say saving Doctor Who. It needs a master plan, a bit like you said, Brandon. It needs a master plan where I think to get the casual viewers in, you need something where they go, oh gosh, this is gritty. It's a bit like Torchwood at the end when they did those 5 episodes. Was it Children of Earth? And it was one problem, 5 episodes, quite authentic, apart from it had a kind of fantasy beast monster sort of thing. But apart from that, I just think this Magnus Greel, like Taran Capel, you've got somebody who, again, is, he's got a web of power. He's got agents everywhere. Again, I think when you asked me about a villain to save the series, he would glue the series, but you wouldn't get a reveal much. And he's very powerful. Look what he did with the rats. Look what he did. I mean,
yeah, true.
I just think there's a lot he can do that's sinister and monstrous and evil. He's got some great interesting characterization there. On top of that, you can see he's got a clever political power base in the future. And so, again, you could, and Modern Who loves to say 1 minute we're in Bolivia, the next minute we're in Leningrad, all that nonsense. Well, I like the idea that you could maybe do that, since I'm obsessed with showing off that they've got some drone shots. And they can actually have where Magnus Greel is pulling strings everywhere.
Oh, yeah, it would be a lot easier to show that sort of stuff now. I think they'd have a lot better access to stock footage and different things they would need and little tricks. That would be awesome.
Yeah. And in many respects, actually, in comparison to the Rani, she just tends to keep herself to herself more than anything when you ever see her on the screen. And so she doesn't really overly affect the plot as perhaps someone like Magnus Greel could actually do. I mean, I know she's a bit, but yeah.
I had him down as like a Genghis Khan of the future type thing. That's
like looking at this picture, I know it's not the best shot, but I'm thinking Genghis Khan. Yeah, okay, so that's a good choice. All right, let's see what's next. Oh, Omega.
Yes. This is what it should be. Not that stupid helmet from Arc of Infinity either. I didn't like that look very much, but this is just like what I was talking about before. It's the same flavor. It's still ice cream. It's just a different flavor. So instead of Rassilon, I think there's some untapped goodies here we'll make. You've got the mystery of the Time Lords. And I'm always kind of hopeful maybe they could use something like this, something to do with the Time Lords, to fix the Timeless Children. Because let's just say if they're going to keep going with this lore breaking stuff like Timeless Children, where does that line up with Omega, Rassilon, and all that sort of stuff in the founding of Time Lord Society? So they've got a lot of untapped goods there, maybe even potential to fix some of their mistakes. But I really, I've always, like, I never get tired of saying I'm really enamored of like their story and their history, and I've always wanted to hear more. But I think this will be a good one. Plus, he's in that crazy. I guess he's still in that land where he can kind of control things, but maybe they could figure out some way to deposit him on Earth. I don't know. You know how they do it. Like, you got to find me bodies to restore my energy or something. I don't know, but I'd like to see him back for sure.
It's interesting how we've gone in two very different directions, me and Brandon, because
I went gray into cosmic and you went, more cerebral.
It's really funny. I tell you what, very trusting, Brandon, because I'm scared I really am about them touching the Time Lords after what they've done recently.
Oh God, they got to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get you. I know. I mean, yeah, I get your point. I'm just worried what they would do with them.
I tell you what, though, I will willing to concede. I'll give you you guys say series, but a series or season or two of the more intimate stuff with yours, and then once they've proven their storytelling capabilities, then they can bring back the Time Lords. But yeah, okay, I concede that they needed to prove something for sure.
It is interesting how you have both gone in completely different directions, but you've chosen characters that we don't get to see very often, and I think that will be the thing that gets people, if anything, to at least come back.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I went with the Valeyard.
Sweet. I almost picked that one, so I'm glad I didn't.
Now, my reasoning for the Valeyard is just because, well, first of all, he's a fantastic character, but he also appeared in this one massive saga, and then other than the audio dramas, we haven't seen him since. And we know he's at the end of the Doctor's regenerations and just like sort of like lingering. And it's like, what danger could he actually potentially cause upon himself in the past? Now, I don't think Colin Baker, because he's very much protective of the Valeyard, will appreciate the Valeyard coming back on screen. Although I shouldn't actually say that because I'll be putting words into his mouth. But I just think that he is one for bringing back and exploring a little bit further.
And
I did have
mystery.
that. Yeah. He is a mystery. It's a mystery because I felt like in the Trial of the Time Lord, they didn't explain him enough. I felt like they could have done more. I feel the same.
I mean, it's kind of nebulous. Like, he's somewhere in between the Doctor's 12th and final regeneration or something.
Yeah.
So, but what I can't keep wondering is, like, imagine Capaldi now. He's like 65, 66. He's a little bit older, a little bit grayer. Imagine him in that black hat and them robes with that acting ability. Him or maybe even Tennant, like we talked about on the Sense Sphere about like a Tennant Valeyard. But I just imagine what Capaldi could do with something like that, man.
I was just wondering, thinking of this, because I actually crossed this one out. I must admit, like Brandon, I was thinking of it. I was dabbling. But yes, we've kind of discussed how the Valeyard could fit into present Who at the moment, haven't we? But, like with a plant, in each generation, as it reproduces, these people who pollinate them, they become they actually go back to their native roots. If you want a special colour, in the end, you get the original. I'm just wondering, because the Doctor's now got 15 different personalities now, the Valeyard should start kind of almost appearing, like Jekyll and Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
And I like this. I mean, Jekyll and Hyde.
You mean like an internal struggle against Valeyard? Yeah, that'd be cool.
And so basically, you could almost have this kind of, the Doctor sometimes goes rogue within himself now, because as you said, Brandon, he's somewhere between the 12th and last incarnation. I know that is very loose, but we're in that field now. And I think if you do want to bring the Valeyard back, one way is not to have him as a separate character, that he's actually in something within.
So like have Shooty do it. Have Shooty be the Valeyard.
Well, actors love to do the same.
Give me the loving.
or like at the end of Shooty's tenure, so to speak, they do that regeneration thing and split off, and suddenly you've got the Valeyard there. Like,
imagine they split off Valeyard. He's looking at Shooty like,
yeah.
Or what if it was like Jekyll and Hyde, where one minute the Doctor's, driving the TARDIS, and the next minute he has a moment when he's not himself.
Right, like Rachael when he's
a Valeyard.
Oh, man,
I mean, every actor, as you know, loves playing a doppelganger. Every actor, like Salamander and Patrick Troughton, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if you set it up from now, every Doctor from now on plays an evil side of themselves at some point.
Ooh,
that would be good.
Man, I think you might should have been working for BBC instead of the school system. But yeah, that's better than what they're doing now. That would be that's got me thinking that would be cool.
Right. Well, moment of truth. What have the audience decided?
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's find out. Bit slow. Sorry. Okay, so I put out which classic villain should come back to save the show and why. Not many people left a comment, but they certainly voted. We had 20 votes. 40% said the Rani. 5% said the Black Guardian. 35% said the Warlord. And 20% said the Valeyard. So, what do you think? The Rani is the winner. What do you think of that choice?
Is that actress still alive?
No,
she's not. Okay, yeah, so they'd have to come up with somebody else. But
yeah,
I would love to see that character again, definitely. I know certain people aren't very fond of some of that era, but I like it all, so I wouldn't mind her come back.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because you've got the Rani, Kate O'Mara's no longer with us, and I think there's a love for that character in the way she played it. Obviously, the Valeyard equally so with Michael Jaston, no longer with us. Black Guardian, Valentine Dial, fantastic voice. No longer with us.
With the Black Guardian, we would have to have the White Guardian as well.
Yes, yeah. Have to be a woman.
Yeah, and I've read different things, different places, and it may just be a comic book explanation. It was like what I was talking about earlier with Rassilon and the Matrix Lords being behind everything. This was just like one explanation, was that the Time Lords created the Black and White Guardian. I didn't really like that because I like the thought of them being somewhat more elevated than that. But I wouldn't mind more with them. That's another case where we just got a little piece of the story and I want to know more.
Yeah,
it's
all the layers. It's like I was thinking of the Black Guardian, and then I was thinking of the Eternals in Enlightenment. There's all these
Eternals was one of mine. I was thinking of too.
Yeah, that was one of mine actually. Yeah,
and it's trying to work out. Well, who's the top god type?
Yeah, because you need a legitimate threat. It's like coming up with a villain for Superman. Any old street criminal is not going to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, if the Rani does come back, then our audience is certainly in agreement with that. I mean, she's a great character, and I think out of the four, I think they chose really well. So
I want to know more because like they all hang out, like Ronnie, the Master, the Doctor, was that Drax, and a couple other people that they knew. Like I'd like to know more about that group. I think they call themselves the Decker or something, and they called the Doctor Theta Sigma or something like that. But they were friends at the Academy. And I'd like to know more about that and like what busted their group up.
You could do it, the Breakfast Club of Gallifrey, and that's
Time Lord Academy, the Pridonian show or whatever. I could see Disney doing some stupid stuff like that and putting out something that like we don't care about.
Actually, here's an interesting thing. I've just realized in this poll, and I didn't realize that I did it at the time, that 3 out of the 4 characters that I've actually listed there were all part of an overarching storyline. Except for the Rani. So that's interesting that they chose the Rani. So maybe they just don't feel that they've seen enough of her. And she'd be great, certainly, in a one-off episode. As an overarching series, what potentially could you do with her? Because like we said, she sort of dabbles and she sort of keeps herself to herself. Doesn't really care much about what the Doctor is up to, so to speak, per se.
Yeah, we don't know what any of these people were up to during the Time War, as far as I know. So they've got that. They could have fallen into some other time period or had any number of things happen. They could explain why we haven't seen them up till now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you have it. Oh, hello. What's going
on? Are you
on?
doing like Brandon?
Oh, yeah, I'm being like Brandon. I'm being like Brandon.
Yeah.
So there we go. There's our humanoid villains for you. Our ones have been presented to you, our viewers. And the Rani was also chosen by you. But do you agree with us?